Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Kaplan, and I work with SEB Housing. And this is the information session for the one affordable townhome being made available at 163 Atlantic Road in Gloucester, Massachusetts. The purpose of this session is to give you a little bit of background information on the home. We're also going to cover the application, the eligibility, excuse me one second here, the eligibility and application process, as well as the lottery process and what to expect after the lottery. So as you entered the Zoom session here, you were muted. So if you have any questions during the session, we encourage you to either unmute yourself or go ahead and type into the chat box here. Either one of those is perfectly fine. You were muted as you came in just to minimize any unnecessary noise. And so after you do ask a question, we just ask that you go ahead and mute yourself again. We also have a conference call that is running right now that is not through Zoom. I'm going to put the phone number and conference call code into the chat now, just in case any of you would like to join like that later on, or anybody that's seeing this would prefer to do that. And so this is a live session. It is being recorded and it's going to be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel after tonight. So it's going to be available there for viewing after today. If you have any questions after tonight's session, though, you can contact SEB Housing. You can contact us by email at info@sebhousing.com. That's the quickest way to get in touch with us. But if you'd prefer to call, that's perfectly fine as well. And our number is here on the screen. So does anybody have any questions so far, any issues connecting, seeing the presentation, hearing me before I go on? All right, good. So I'm just going to go through, first just to tell you a little bit about SEB Housing, to give you some background on that. So we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we've been hired by the developer to market the affordable home, conduct this information session, collect and review applications, and determine an applicant's eligibility for the affordable housing program, and also to run the lottery eventually. So we're not part of the sales team. We haven't seen the home. We're not on site, anything like that. So in the initial phases, we will be your main point of contact rather than the developer or the sales team. But further along in the process, you would have more direct contact with the owner if you're invited to move forward to purchase the townhome following the lottery. So there's two broad steps in the process. The first is to apply for the affordable housing program. And that's when you'll be really in touch with SEB. We're going to answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program. We're going to do a preliminary review of your application and determine if you're eligible for the lottery. If you are, you'll be given a lottery number, and you'll eventually, after the lottery, have a position on the waiting list for this townhome. The second step involves the process of actually reserving and buying the home. So your opportunity to do that will depend on your placement on the waiting list following the lottery. And so if you haven't already done so, you're going to want to visit our website, sebhousing.com. And there, if you click on affordable housing opportunities and select I want to buy, you're going to then select 163 Atlantic Road, and you'll be taken to a page specific to this property. It's going to have a downloadable version of the application, a template of a deed rider, which would be finalized closer to the closing date, and also an information packet. The information packet contains most of the information that I'll be covering during this session. We're not going to have time to cover everything that's in that packet, but I will be reviewing the main points. So even if you attend this information session, it is recommended that you take a look at that information packet. And then if you choose to apply for the affordable home, you would need to complete the affordable unit application, and you would be able to submit that to us in one of several ways, whichever is most convenient for you. You could email it to us, you could scan it to us, you could fax it to us. Our fax number is listed on the first page of the application. You can send it by regular mail. If you're in the Needham area, that's where our office is. You can drop it off at our secure drop box. You can go any time of day or night there. Our address is 257 Hillside Ave. It's located on the left side of the building once you come down the driveway. And we check that every day. So whatever one of those works best for you, that's how you can get the application over to us. We encourage you to get the lottery application in early. It is fairly brief. It really should only take you about 10 minutes to complete. There's no supporting documentation needed at this early stage, but you will need to submit a mortgage pre-approval with your application, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. The applications are due on August 29th, so less than a month away now. And we would need to have those in hand. So the applications would have to be delivered to us or postmarked by that date in order to be considered. You do not need to be a resident of Gloucester to apply for this lottery. Just want to make sure that's clear as well. So the home itself, there is a website for this property. It is part of a larger property that's being called Aquarius in Gloucester. So that's what the website is. aquariusgloucester.com. So I have it up on the screen now, and that website has more history on the property, detailed floor plans, a full list of amenities and finishes. We have been told that the affordable unit will be ready to be shown and will be available for tours as of August 25th. So it's not available right now, but in a few weeks it will be, and that's just a few days before the lottery. So I would encourage you to get, if you think you're interested in the property, I would encourage you to get your lottery application in before having, potentially gone into the unit, just because it's only 4 days before the 29th that it sounds like they will be ready to show to any interested parties. So the townhome is being sold at an affordable price to households with income at or below 80% of the area median income. And this is a townhome that is located within a new subdivision of 11 homes. It's just steps from the ocean, as you can see from the picture here. Anyone who's looked at the website has seen what a gorgeous setting it is. It is just minutes from Good Harbor Beach and downtown Gloucester as well. And the affordable home is quite large. It contains 2,555 square feet. It has 5 bathrooms. 3 of those are full, 2 are half. It is a 3-story residence, and it has a deck that overlooks that has ocean views, I should say, a patio that overlooks conservation land, and there is a single car attached garage. The interior has features such as an electric fireplace, laundry hookup, 2-zone gas heating system with air conditioning, and a tankless water heater. The kitchen includes stainless steel appliances and designer countertops, and the exterior of the home has cedar shingle and clapboard, and the yard has been or will be professionally landscaped. There is a homeowner's fee of $365 per month. That fee covers common area insurance, maintenance, landscaping, and snow removal. And the sales price of the townhome is $301,400. On the application, or I shouldn't say on the application, on the information pack, I noticed just a few minutes before this information session started that price is listed incorrectly on page 14 of the information packet that's on our website. So I apologize if that caused any confusion, but the correct sales price is $301,400. That is listed on page 3 of the information pack. So it was just later on in the packet that it was listed incorrectly. I will update that immediately following the session and repost that. So this price is significantly below what the market rent homes have sold for already in the community or will be selling for. They've gone for between $1.75 million and $2 million. So it's a higher end opportunity here. So as I said, it will only be made available to purchase by households who have incomes at or below 80% of that area median income, which is also referred to as AMI. So the AMIs are amounts that are set by the Department of Housing and Community Development, so HUD. Each spring, those are released. And Gloucester falls within the Metro Boston area median income or AMI area. Since this is an affordable home, it is going to have what's called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of purchase. And so this ensures that the home remains affordable in the future, even if you as the owner potentially chooses to sell it further down the line. And just a quick overview of what that means, what is actually in a deed rider. So the deed rider limits the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. So if you're looking to buy, flip, and resell a property in a year or two, this wouldn't be an opportunity for you. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to eventually resell the property for more than you pay for it, but it would need to be resold to another affordable buyer. So you may have some return on investment, but you shouldn't expect the same appreciation that market homes might be selling for in a few years from now or further down the line. There is a formula for the resale price of affordable properties, and there's an example on the last page of the information packet, and the formula that's listed there is also based on AMI. The deed rider also says that it must be your primary residence. So generally, you wouldn't be able to rent out this property as an investment property, an Airbnb or something like that. The deed rider also says that if you would like to refinance or make capital improvements, such as a new roof or something like that down the line, the Department of Housing and Community Development, the state, would need to approve that. This is a brand new home, so these types of improvements would likely not be in the cards for you for many years, but just wanted to make sure to mention that. Those are the 3 points that we like to point out in the deed rider. But you can, again, see a sample deed rider on our website that's listed along with the application and the information pack for Atlantic Road. So I mentioned that a mortgage pre-approval is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. So we suggest that after you review the information packet, you either just copy or rip out page 10, which lists the required mortgage pre-approval standards for this housing opportunity. You can bring that directly to your mortgage lender or bank to show it to them. And the reason for that, I say that, is because you want to be sure that the mortgage product that the bank is offering you is going to meet the necessary standards for the affordable housing program. You might also want to bring the sample deed rider that's on our website listing, since information in that deed rider can sometimes be problematic for lenders. Certain loans, for example, won't accept the terms of a deed rider. And so, for example, of that, the loan for this program needs to be a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It also can't be an FHA or a VA loan, since those types of loans don't accept the deed restrictions. You don't want to be in a situation where you are granted pre-approval and then your lender backs out at the time of purchase once they're made aware of these resale restrictions that are listed in the documentation that I'm talking about here. So along those same lines, we do want to mention that it's been our experience that it's been very difficult for applicants to successfully close with Bank of America as their lender. So we recommend that you don't use Bank of America for your pre-approval or mortgage, because it seems like their mortgage products are probably not suited for the affordable homes. But with that said, you can select any lender or bank that you would like. We just strongly recommend that you choose someone that has experience with affordable housing programs. And so a link is included on page 10 of the information packet, which will direct you to the Mass Housing Partnerships website. This site is a great resource for you to be able to find lenders who are familiar with affordable housing. So go ahead and take a look at that. The mortgage pre-approval standards do state that you would need to put a down payment of at least 3% on the purchase price. Half of that would need to be, so 1.5% would need to be from your own funds. So your loan or mortgage can be up to 97% of the purchase price. So any questions before I move on the general application process or the deed rider? See some chat questions here, so let me take a look at those as well. The first question here is, will Gloucester residents get priority? The answer is no. There is not a local preference for this home. Is it possible to get mortgage pre-approval with home buyer course requirement in time for the application? I do not know how long that process would take you. It is possible for you to get a mortgage pre-approval by going to the bank and hopefully be able to get that within a few days. I do not know about the course requirement or how long that would take, or, you know, depending on where you'd be taking the course. So I'm not quite sure. What is the exact dollar figure for the AMI? We are going to be discussing that in just a few minutes. As far as the property insurance, is the property all in covered by HOA? I do have that answer. I will look it up for you in just a moment. Is the income limit based on AGI or tax return? We're going to talk about that too. And the income, the household income, we're looking at income for everyone in the household, and it is, you know, we have to look at everything. We are going to be asking for tax returns. We are going to be asking for pay stubs, for example, if you're working. So we're taking everything into account. Do I know what the unit number is? Yes, it's unit number 4. And that is not shown on their website, but it is unit 4. So it's in the Trident. I actually meant to mention that. It's in the Trident building. If you're looking at their website, you will see it there. Is asset limit net of liabilities? You cannot rent out a room while you occupy. I might have to get back to you on that one. Yeah, Flanagan there. That may be something that you would need to run by the state, as I mentioned, in terms of, because if you're occupying it, that is a little trickier. Then obviously you're still living in it as your main residence. So I'll get back to you on that. How many applications do we expect? I can't really estimate that. I didn't think there would be this much of an audience tonight, so that gives you some sort of an idea there, because we haven't had very many complete applications come in yet. Can you explain the down payment percentage again? Is it 1.5 or 3 or 3%? So it's 3% we need to have as a down payment. Half of that needs to be your own funds. So your loan or mortgage can be up to 97% of your. Sorry, the mortgage needs to be 97% of the purchase price, and half of that 3% down payment that you're putting in needs to be your own funds. It can't be a gift, for example, from someone else. Hold on one second here. Let me make sure we get everything. Oh, thanks, Dave. My colleague here, Dave Cashman's asset limit is not net of liabilities, excuse me. Thank you. All right. Anybody else before I move on to income eligibility? Do I know the PEP policy? I should have had that in here for you. I will look that up, but there was one other question that I was going to look up here. The unit number was 4. Oh, the insurance. Dave, if you're still on here, if you don't mind looking and seeing the insurance, whether it's walls in or not, and the PEP policy, those are 2 things that I should have had ready to go. But so we'll circle back on those, and I'll continue forward with the eligibility requirements. Thanks. Okay. So someone asked for the exact number for the AMIs, and they're listed on your screen now if you have that up. And I'm going to go through those in just a minute. But first, I just want to say that there's 4 general eligibility requirements or main eligibility requirements listed on page 4 of the information packet. The first is that everyone in the household must be considered a first-time home buyer. There are exceptions to this, which we're going to be discussing in a few moments. But even if you do qualify for one of those exceptions, you would need to sell your current home before you would be able to close on the affordable home at 163 Atlantic Road. The second eligibility requirement is that the household income and assets must be below the maximum allowable income and asset amounts. They're listed on your screen now. We're going to talk a lot more about those in just a few minutes. You must be pre-approved for a mortgage, and then applicants cannot have financial interest in the development or be a related party. And so this home is being offered by the developer 171 Atlantic Road LLC. And so if you work for them or related to them in some way, you may not be eligible for this lottery. So I just want to put that out there. It doesn't come up often, but all right, to circle back on the first-time home buyer eligibility requirement. So all household members are considered first-time home buyers if they have not within the first 3 years, within the last 3 years, owned a home. This includes through joint ownership. If you were a household member on someone else's deed, for example, if you owned a home with your partner, you would still be considered the owner of the home. There are 5 exceptions to the first-time homebuyer rule that are listed in the information packet. The 3 exceptions that come up most often, we're going to talk about now. So the first is someone who's referred to as a displaced homemaker. This is someone who hasn't worked outside of the home for several years, but has worked at the home to care for the home and family. They have owned a home with their partner or spouse, but they no longer own that home due to a recent separation or divorce. So that person is no longer on the home's deed. That's the first exception. The second is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more minor children, or someone who is pregnant that is now being displaced due to that family breakup, and they're now looking for a new home to buy. The third exception to the first-time home buyers rule is an age-qualified household. So this applies to someone who is a member of the household who is 55 years or older, and that person is selling or has sold a home in order to purchase this affordable property. So if you qualify for any of those exceptions, you do still need to sell your home before buying the home at Atlantic Road. This might mean, for example, that a divorce needs to be finalized, or just to make sure that you're no longer on that deed. All right, so the income limits that we had talked about, or that someone had asked about. So this is an affordable home, and it's being made available for purchase for amounts that are much lower than the market rates in the area. Because of this, the home, like I said, is only being made available to households that have at or below 80% of the area median income. So the maximum income amounts that are on your screen are set by household size. So when you're figuring your approximate household income, you're going to want to include income for everyone who will be living in the household. And these amounts are listed on the application and the information packet. They're on the website. So you don't need to write them down or anything, but I'm going to read them for you here just for anybody in case they're on this call. A 1-bedroom maximum income limit, a 1-person household, the maximum income limit is $78,300. The maximum income limit for a 2-person household is $89,500. The maximum income for a 3-person household is $100,700. A 4-person household, max income is $111,850,000. 5-person household, $120,800, and a 6-person household, $129,750 is the maximum income limit. So you're not required, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, to submit verification of income when you submit your unit application and mortgage pre-approval. You will be, at that time, when you are found eligible for the lottery, you'll be provided with a documentation requirements guide once you have been found eligible by SEB. And this guide really details exactly what types of documentation, such as pay stubs, benefit statements, tax returns, that we're going to need from you depending on your specific income and asset situation. For everybody, regardless of your source of income, we are going to need your tax returns from the last 3 years. We're going to need bank statements, that sort of thing. So you want to review this guide carefully because if after the lottery you are invited to move forward in this process, you're going to have about a week or 10 days to submit all of the required documentation. And so although we don't need to verify we don't need your verification, your income verification with your preliminary application for the lottery, I do want to give you a basic overview of how we're going to be calculating your income. Before I do that, I see the chat here. Yep, so Dave has replied, just in case you hadn't looked in there yet. The pet policy is not more than 1 dog or cat per unit, weighing less than 50 pounds. And so you typically can't rent your home or rent a room in your home. If there are extenuating circumstances, you would be able to speak with the state, but generally renting is not allowed. Okay, thank you for that, Dave. Any follow-up questions, just let us know in the chat as well. Okay, so calculating income. How is SED going to calculate your income to verify your eligibility for this opportunity? So income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So really all income is included, and this would include bonuses or overtime. And the only exceptions to this are minors. So wages for minors, anyone in your household who is under the age of 18 that's working and earning a wage, we would not count that wage income. Second exception is if you have a dependent full-time student who is working, we're only going to count the first $480 when we're determining your household eligibility and your total household income. We do have to count gross income, so the amount you make before taxes. We recognize, obviously, that's not what you're taking home, and it's not the full amount of your salary that you're getting to take home, but gross income does need to be counted according to the program guidelines. How we calculate income isn't one size fits all. Everyone's income circumstances are unique. So we have some applicants who have a very steady weekly salary that's consistent throughout the year, while others are self-employed or working seasonally. So in those types of circumstances, we may need to look further back into the past in order to project your anticipated income for the next 12 months. So specifically for anyone who is self-employed, you will need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation. There is a sample profit and loss statement at the end of the application that you'll see as well. Your business expenses, if you're self-employed, will be taken into consideration and into account. But for households who are not self-employed, it's always the gross income that we're going to be counting. In general, any income that you have been making, we're going to assume you will continue to make going forward, unless we have some sort of definitive documentation stating that you're no longer going to be earning that income source. So an example of that might be a written letter from your employer stating that bonuses and overtime will not be paid in the coming year. We're not permitted to accept statements from applicants. So for example, if all the documentation that we have, tax returns, pay stubs, things like that, from the last year are telling us that you made $80,000 in the last year, but you're indicating that you plan to work far less hours in the coming year and you're only going to be making about $50,000, we would still need to count that $80,000 as your projected household income, unless additional information is provided for us to consider. And even if something is provided, it's not guaranteed that we'll be able to decrease the amount that we're figuring into your total household income. But we do need to consider all the factors when we're looking at your household income. So really just try to get as much information into us as possible and take a look at that documentation guide that you'll be receiving after you're found eligible for the lottery. Sources of income that are on the application, just to list a few types of income off so you're not forgetting anything. Wages, whether it be self-employment or wages from an employer, Social Security, SSDI, child support, alimony, retirement distributions, unemployment or workman's compensation, a pension, even periodic payments from friends or family, assets that generate income. You want to disclose all of that on your application. So we have a complete picture of your household income. So to apply for the lottery, there's no minimum household income requirements, but in order to qualify for a mortgage, you will need to meet the lender or the bank's requirements in order to receive the mortgage pre-approval that's required. So just keep that in mind. Assets, so a household may not have more than $75,000 in assets at the time of the application. And this includes any funds that you were planning to use for a future down payment. So if you happen to have a family member, for example, or a friend who is planning to gift you part of your down payment, that is considered an asset. So you need to disclose that on your application. Other assets include cash in savings or checking accounts, CDs, the net value of stocks or retirement accounts, like a 401k or a 403b, bonds, even your Venmo or PayPal accounts. It's not something you might think of as an asset, but those are statements that we are going to be looking for the last 3 months worth of statements from Venmo, PayPal, and that sort of thing. You also might think it's a little strange that we're going to be counting money that's tied up in your retirement account. So especially since any of you who are not near retirement age, you may not be planning to access that money for many years, but the program does require us to do so, since you could, in theory, access it to withdraw funds, even if there was a large penalty that you'd be incurring. So it's the post-penalty amount, or the net cash value, that we must count for retirement accounts. So if you have a retirement account, you'd be asked to get a letter from the financial institution listing what that post-penalty amount would be were you to withdraw. If there's any, I already mentioned this as well in the income part of this, but if you have any interest that is generated by your assets, if you're receiving, any interest from your stocks or even your savings account, we will count that towards your total household income. We do not need you to document or provide supporting documentation for assets, personal assets such as cars, jewelry, that sort of thing. All right, so we've covered the eligibility criteria for the housing program and a little bit for the lottery application. Is there any questions on that? Check the chat real quick here before I move on to lottery eligibility. All right, we'll move right along. All right, so we mentioned earlier, if you are interested, we do encourage you to apply as soon as possible to get the process started. We're going to review your application once it comes in and contact you if there's any information that's missing or appears incorrect, and you'll have a chance to go ahead and correct it and resubmit as necessary. If you are found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number in the form of a dot and then a series of numbers. This is the number that's going to be drawn during the lottery. So it's meant to be an anonymous identifier, so we're not calling your name out during the lottery. It's not a ranking of any sort, so it corresponds with the order in which we received and approved your application. So if you were the first person to submit a completed application, your number is going to be A.001. So on your application, you would have indicated if you're a household type 1, 2, or 3. Household types 1 and 2 can apply for the 3-bedroom home, but a type 3 household in this case will have priority. And this means that all type 3 households will be ahead of any type 1 or 2 households on the waiting list once we establish that following the lottery. There are additional details on household composition and types on page 8 of the information packet. Just for reference, all households that are that have 4, 5, or 6 members are going to be considered type 3 households, as well as some 3-person households. So go ahead and take a look in the information packet, and you'll be able to see on the application as well where you fall. The lottery itself, or sorry, the lottery application deadline. So the deadline for the applications is August 29th. The lottery itself, though, is going to be held virtually on September 12th at 6 p.m. It's going to be the same format is this. It's going to be a Zoom session, and the top households following that lottery will be invited by SEB to move forward to reserve the unit, get a mortgage, and buy the home. Numbers during the lottery itself on the Zoom call, the numbers that we just talked about, A.001, for example, will be drawn from the box, held up to the screen so you can see it, and the session will be recorded. Every lottery number will be drawn during that lottery. So sometimes we think of lotteries, there's just going to be, you know, one number is drawn, there's one household who's able to purchase this unit. That's not how this is going to go. The lottery is really just held in order for us to establish the waiting list for the home. So it creates an order of priority for the next steps in the process. And so if you're watching on the night of the lottery, it's sometimes hard to tell what your placement actually means, since we haven't sorted household types yet. So household types 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be called during the lottery. We're going to sort the results, and where you fall on the wait list will become a lot more clear after that. So for example, if a type 1 household is drawn first in the lottery, they're still going to be behind all type 2 and type 3 households on the waiting list. So all households who were entered into the lottery may eventually be, or sorry, there potentially will be households who were found eligible for the lottery by SEB Housing, but they're not going to be able to purchase the unit. But this goes both ways. If you're called fourth and you know, you're thinking, well, there's 3 people ahead of me, I'm not going to be able to purchase this home, you really shouldn't lose hope, because a lot of things happen between the lottery and closing. So there may be people ahead of you who ultimately decide they're not interested in purchasing the property, and you may be able to move up on the waiting list and still have the opportunity to buy the townhome. So just keep that in mind if you're not right at the top of the list. So following the lottery, we do our best to send out the waiting list to all applicants as soon as possible. It's usually no later than the next morning. And we will send it by email. We'll send those wait lists by email with confirmation of next steps. If we don't have your email address, or if you don't have an email address, it will be sent by mail. And so when you're reviewing that email following the lottery, you're going to want to find your lottery application number, and you can see where you fall on the waiting list. And so from that moment, you'll have a better idea of whether or not you'll be invited to move forward on the next steps in the process. So if you are the top household on the waiting list, or you're one of the top households, we're going to invite you to move forward in the process. And that's when you'll be asked to provide all of the income, asset, and tax documentation that we've been talking about tonight. And that is going to be what we're looking at in order to confirm your eligibility for this opportunity. So hopefully by this point, you've had a chance to take a look at the documentation requirements guide that I mentioned that you received before the lottery, and you've been working to gather that income documentation and information that we need to determine your eligibility. So you're going to have about 7 days, a little over a week maybe, to provide all of the requested documentation. And then once we receive your application package, we're going to review it. We're going to respond to you within a few days. I do want to say that most applicants do not submit a 100% complete application on the first try. That's fine. It's not a one and done type deal. So the reasons for this too are there's a lot of information that will be required at this point in the process. A lot of supporting documentation is required. And also because sometimes maybe you did submit everything that we asked for, but in reviewing your bank statements, for example, we have questions for you on some deposits. So that's really why we encourage you to get your application in early. Take a look at that program documentation guide so you can be as prepared as possible should you be one of the top households that's asked to move forward. So are there any questions on the lottery process and eligibility process with SEB before I move forward? Oh, Got some things in chat here. Oh, Dave jumped in now. Okay, let's see. It looks like the questions here were answered. 401k interest, is it counted towards income or assets? Interest is counted towards the income. Any cash value, net cash value towards assets. And then we just talked about when you'd be notified if you are placed on the wait list. All right, so it looks like they were all answered there. So thank you for that, Dave. All right, so feel free, like I said, any questions, keep putting them into chat, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like to as well, until we can talk through it. All right, so if you're ultimately found eligible by SEB, our next step is to then send your file, after we've reviewed all of your supporting documentation, to the state. So the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, is going to then review your file and give us the green light, hopefully, that you're eligible to move forward in the process. So once DHCD has approved your application, the process begins to be very similar to if you were purchasing a market rate home. I should mention at this point too, if you decide to hire an attorney to help you navigate through the process, we really encourage that. It's perfectly acceptable to do that. It's probably the smart thing to do. Buying a home, it's a huge decision. You want to be sure that you're comfortable in the process and you understand everything that you're signing and that you're well represented. So that is that's perfectly acceptable to do that. And this is probably the point in the process that you would want to do that if you are asked to move forward following the lottery. So once DHCD has approved your application, you will be put in touch with the owner or the developer of the unit, the sales team, to schedule a time to tour the home and complete a reservation agreement. So in order to reserve the home, a $500 refundable deposit is required. After you reserve the home, you'll have about 10 business days to sign a purchase and sale agreement and place the required deposit, which is that 1.5% of the sales price minus the $500 that you've already paid when reserving the unit. And the purchase and sale agreement may include certain agreed upon contingencies, and a closing date could be listed there. And this is really one of the final steps in the home buying process. Once you've signed that purchase and sale, you're then going to go back to the bank or lender who issued you the pre-approval, or you can find a new bank as well at that point and obtain a mortgage commitment. So this process varies a little bit depending on the lender, but generally for the mortgage commitment, they're going to want to review all of the documentations up to this point, such as your purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider, and they'll do an appraisal of the home. SEB has a final, just change the slide there, has a final review of your file as well. So households, applicants must remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until closing. So right about 3 or 4 weeks before your closing date, we're going to conduct that final review. And that will include asking for updated pay stubs, for example, updated bank statements, the mortgage commitment letter that you will have. And we will forward that final package to DHCD again for their final review. And if you have maintained eligibility, you'll move towards closing. Once you've closed on the home, you can move in. There'll be no future income or asset eligibility reviews, and hopefully you enjoy the home. I see one thing come up in chat here. Can we get copies of the slides? Sure, I can. If you want to either shoot me a private message here with your email or email us at info@sebhousing.com. I'll check that after this session and I'll get that over to you. I can send it to you. That really covers everything that I wanted to get to from the information packet. And once again, you can find the information pack, the application, and the deed rider sample on our website under I want to buy, and then 163 Atlantic Road in Gloucester. I mentioned at the beginning of the call too, there is a typo with the sales price on page 14, so I will be updating that tonight. So the sales price is the $301,400, not what you might see later on in the information pack. There is one other question. How long typically between lottery and closing? I mean, it really varies, but I would estimate, I mean, 4 to 6 weeks. Probably more actually, because we do have the 2 reviews for you, so maybe 6 weeks or so, but it depends, because, you know, we have some applicants who are ready to go, they submit everything to us right away, but others who, you know, may have some things that need to come into us. Anything else? I'll stick around for another few minutes here. Thank you for the direct message here, because I will. Sure. Yep, I have a question on the phone call here.
Being so close to the ocean, is it in the flood zone?
The question was, since it's so close to the ocean, is it in the flood zone? I do not know that, and that's a great question. I'm also close to the coast, and luckily I'm not in a flood zone, but I know that that's a big concern for a lot of communities around here. So I will check with the developer on that. Could you email us at info@sdbhousing.com? So I have your email address and we can get that back to you.
Sure, thank you.
No problem. I hope not, for everybody's sake, but you never know. Anyone else? Julie, if you can't send a direct message on here, you might just want to email info@sdbhousing.com, and I'll check that right after this. So I have your email address. Just writing down a email address here. Anyone else?
Hi, yes, I'm sorry. I don't know if I missed this. I was just wondering, it looks like on the developer's website, the property, there may be another property built a little in front of the unit available. I'm not sure if I saw that correctly, or if you addressed that, but will there be any change to the view once all the properties on that developing land is finished?
I believe that behind the building, it's the Trident building. If you're looking at the website, it's the Trident building, and the back of the Trident building has conservation land from what I can see. And since that's conservation land, there's no plans to develop that as far as I know. In front of you, or I guess if you look on the picture here, so the building we're talking about is this, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but it's not the building in the foreground here. It's the one further back is the Trident building. The green space behind that is conservation land. And then in front, as far as I know, there is nothing else being developed in that area. Yep. These 2 buildings will be there. And then this is obviously the driveway coming in. And they own the land on both sides there, I think. So yeah, nothing that we know of there. That is a question that you could ask when you go on a tour too, though, just to be sure. Anything else? All right, if anything comes up after tonight, go ahead and email us at info@sdbhousing.com. We'll be happy to get back to you with any questions. It looks like there's one more. What does it mean when it says the top households on the waiting list can choose from any of the available units? So there's only one affordable unit in this case. So that, yeah, just the way it's worded there is confusing, I understand, but yeah, there's only the one unit in this lottery. And the top household would have first dibs it, if you want to say it like that. Yep. Anyone else? All right, I encourage everybody to apply. Any questions, like I said, info@sdbhousing.com will be where you can reach us after today. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.